I'm so interested in seeing what him and Quinn Ewers do this year. There's been so much hype.
We should have a pretty dangerous running back in Blake Corum.
Maryland's got Talia Tagovailoa.
Yeah.
A little too backyard footballish.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? It is your boy Sean Spencer, one half of that dynamic duo that is Let's Talk Football. And yes, it is Wednesday night, middle of the week. And welcome to College Football Update with my guy right here. You see him donning that maize in blue, Mr. Michigan himself, Alex Loosemore. What up, Alex?
Not too much, man. Excited to get through all the stuff we got to talk about here. There's quite a bit. Surprising game tonight. So, lots to go through.
Yo, absolutely. And let's just go ahead and get into that game tonight. UCF beats SMU. And if I'm not mistaken, Alex, it wasn't even close.
Yeah, so the final score ended up being 41-19 for UCF. They kind of handled them all across the board. I mean, Mordecai, I can't remember his first name, but the quarterback for SMU, he had a decent game numbers-wise, almost 300 yards. Didn't get a touchdown, had a pick, so kind of unfortunate there. But it looks like they just kind of controlled them all over the field. John Reese Plumlee, I think that's how you say his name, the quarterback for UCF, 20 and 29, 316 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was just in control all night. Both teams had a big time game from a receiver, over 100 yards on each team. So, if you look at the numbers, it's way closer than it seems. But the numbers that matter are the ones that are on the scoreboard, and UCF just kind of handled that.
Absolutely. And look, UCF, another one of these teams that's doing well quietly. They're 4-1 with wins over South Carolina State and FAU. They did get a win over Georgia Tech with a coach that's no longer there. But we know about their only loss. They had a 14-0 lead in that ball game and then gave up 20 unanswered to Louisville. So they've been in or dominating every single game. They've done great this year, and they're on their way to a bowl game. I'm eager to see what happens through the end of the year. Do you think they can make any magic, be around towards the end?
I think they'll be in that kind of 15 to 25 range come bowl season. They're not going to get any higher than that. I don't think they have enough big time games left on the schedule.
Yeah.
Unless a lot of these teams just kind of eat each other and push each other out, then maybe. But I don't think they're getting a New Year's Six bowl. I don't think they're getting one of those big time bowls. But they'll definitely be playing close to New Year's there for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And UCF is one of those teams that is, one of the smaller schools, if you will, that normally comes up and plays the top tier schools well. They were one of the first, there's a Cincinnati last year. They were one of the first teams to really jump up there and make some noise against the big name schools. Absolutely. Andrew saying first, what's up, Andrew? What's going on, Ash? Hope all is well. Nathan Snell is second. Glad you guys are here. You can hop on and watch. I'm sure all your teams are represented. Absolutely. So look, hey, Alex, let's get right into it with a little segment we like to call Bulletin Board Material. Ladies and gentlemen, this is just some news and notes, something that, we're going to pick out a couple topics each week and talk about a couple things that are going on in college football. And I got to start right here. 5 coaches were fired prior to week 5.
Yeah.
Alex, it's kind of early, man.
I mean, some of these are warranted. Some there's one big one that I think people will know which way I'm going, but I disagree with one big time.
Oh yeah.
Well, I disagree with 2 big time because of how one was handled, and one just because I don't think he should have been fired. But the other 3 make sense to me for sure.
Oh yeah. And if you guys do not know those 5, Paul Christ out of Wisconsin gets fired. Scott Frost, somebody that we predicted earlier in the year, he gets fired. Herm Edwards unceremoniously gets let go. Didn't even wait till he got to the locker room. We'll
that
talk
was
about
bad.
that. Mr. Darrell, what's his first name again?
Carl
Darrell. Yep. Sorry, I forgot your first name, but it looks like the team forgot how to play. Colorado, one of the two winless teams. The other team happens to be Colorado State. So, how far we've fallen. And the other guy, Jeff Collins, who they didn't waste any time doing better. They pulled up the upset against Pitt and got that W. Talk to me about these coaches. Like, are these firings justified, or was it too soon?
To me, Frost was warranted just because Nebraska, whether you like it or not, is still a blue blood, still a big-time school. You're expected to be successful, and they have not been.
Yeah.
I know he was in a lot of games last year, but didn't win them, so he's shown the door. That makes sense to me. Carl Darrell, Colorado's been a dumpster fire for years, so it's just throwing darts at the board. Okay, who's the next guy we're going to try? That one makes sense. Jeff Collins, that was one I pointed out a few weeks ago. Just with all the other teams in that conference making that push, you got to try and get your guy to go make that push now. Herm Edwards, that was horrible. He should not have been fired, especially in that way.
Yeah.
I get that there may have been disagreements. There may have been reasons why the organization wanted him to go, but you don't do it like that, especially somebody that's been in the business as long as him. You don't do that to him. The big one for me is Paul Chryst. I cannot get behind this one at all. This guy, Wisconsin's been a powerhouse year after year after year since he's been there.
Right. That really confused me, man.
Yeah, you have one bad start by Wisconsin's terms to the season, and you dump him now. From what I was kind of looking into it a bit more and listening to like Joel Klatt and some of those guys. Sounds like it might have been pretty mutual that he was kind of realizing with college football nowadays, it's less of an actual football coach and more of being like a CEO with all the name, image, likeness, all that. You're running a business essentially. So I think Chris was starting to get a little frustrated with that. And then obviously not having the success they wanted. Sounds like they went their separate ways amicably, but for what he's done for that program over the last few years, yeah, I can't get behind that at all.
That's one of the problems I had is that, look, this guy's been a winning coach. He's had Wisconsin year in and year out going to bowl games, doing good things. And even if you look at this year, I mean, they won the games they were supposed to win, essentially. Illinois State, they blew out. With New Mexico State, they blew out. I understand, Ohio State put 52 on them, but it's Ohio State. They're the number 3 team in the country, one of the best teams by far in this country.
And the best offense.
We're right. I know that loss to Washington State hurt. Absolutely. And definitely losing to Illinois hurt. But let me know if you agree with me on this. I think the biggest thing and the most glaring fact that I looked at the last game, they only had 2 yards rushing.
Yeah.
Wisconsin, and this is funny. This is what Will said before I got on. He said, one thing you know about Wisconsin is they're going to have skilled players, running backs, solid defense, but they're going to have them corn-fed big old white boys that are going to be on the line and that are going to, be 3 and 4 year starters. And that is something that you will not have to worry about. As we've seen, the quarterback is an issue, but running game is not something they should have had to worry about. So, maybe that all played a factor, but still, you're 2 and 3. You're not awful.
No.
Me.
Yeah. I still don't understand that one.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah. So, it's interesting. We talked about Herm. You mentioned him earlier. Nate was saying, they didn't understand that. Neither of us definitely are on board with that. I think the thing about him is one of the things I watched the USC versus Arizona State game this week, which actually there were points in the game where, Emory Jones, old quarterback from Florida, who's now over there at Arizona State, had them in the game. He had them kind of coming back and keeping it somewhat close. But one of the things that they said that kind of really messed with me was they said, we've talked about, they were talking to the coaches or whatever, or not the coaches, but to just the organization, Arizona, the program, and they said, we're going to put the best foot forward. We're going to put our best product on the field, and we are all in for winning this year. And I remember I messaged you, and I said, you're all in now? What happened?
Now that you got him out.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, come on now. So Nate says, do y'all think Herm's firing hurts the recruiting because of practically an inside job?
Yeah. I think that's definitely something to look at if you're a guy that wants to go there is, hey, we wanted this guy gone. We were giving info to the other teams to lose those games to get him fired. Like, if they don't like you, they're going to do what they can to get rid of you.
Yeah.
So that's something to look at as a recruit for sure. That would scare me away. I know that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And the other part about it, like, Herm is a good guy. He's not one of these jerks. He's not one of these, fear mongers that's going to come down your throat. He is a likable guy. Everywhere he goes, he's liked. So for y'all to do him dirty like that karma's a B, people. It'll come back around. Trust and believe it. Andrew says Jaron Hall needs more respect. Could be a number 1 QB in the draft class. Okay.
Hey, yeah, he's one of these guys to look at for sure. I agree with that. Yeah. Now, I don't know about number 1. I feel like 1, 2, and 3 are pretty solid. Yeah. Maybe I'm kind of leaning towards switching Levis and Bryce Young. I'm starting to look at that.
Ooh, okay.
This might be sliding up to number 2 for me.
Okay. Oh, I like that. I like that. Oh, man. Sorry, Ash. Playing Petra every week is crime. Cruel and unusual punishment for Iowa fans everywhere.
Man, I was thinking that same thing watching the Iowa-Michigan game this past week. I was just like, damn, if you guys could get a quarterback. Like,
I feel bad. For you. I feel for you. That's another one that's kind of similar to the Wisconsin, where you have the running game, you have a solid defense. Those are the things that you depend on, and you hope you get some play from the quarterback. So I feel for you, Ash. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. I agree. I got Stroud, Levis, Young, Hall, Hooker. Ooh. Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Young obviously he just got hurt, but he hasn't done much to excite me this year.
Right. He's done what he's supposed to do. And if that means he's supposed to, help his team outscore the other team by 50, that's what he's done. He's got 100 yards rushing. But even when he runs, and let me know if you see this too, even when he runs, it looks like sometimes he's jogging. Like, he doesn't really kick it into high gear, so he'll just get 10 yards as opposed to like maybe breaking it for 30 or 40.
To me, that's the difference between Levis and Young. Is to me, Levis, every play looks like he wants it. Yeah. He's going to scratch and claw for every bit he can get for that team, and I love that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So we see who these coaches are. We see these 5 that have been fired. Is there anybody else that you may be looking at? I know Ash was talking about potentially coach is maybe a joke or maybe being serious. We know Brian Harsin out of Auburn.
He's right there. His seat's burning right now.
And that begs the question, how does he keep escaping death every single week? Because he hasn't been winning. Penn State put 41 up on him. Yeah. Missouri beat them. Or no, they beat Missouri, but that's this close. Yeah. If he didn't fumble that ball, Missouri gets that W. You know what I mean? And they have a 14-0 lead against LSU. Or was it 17-0, like 14-0 or 17-0?
I think so, yeah.
And then ended up losing that one. So how does he still have a job?
And some of these coaches, you've got to look, and it's like, okay, if we get rid of this guy, what out there is better that we can get? So some of these schools are kind of sitting back and, okay, now that Paul Christ has been fired, or Herm Edwards, are some of these guys better than what we have?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it is just kind of sitting and waiting, because realistically firing the guy now and getting your guy at the end of the season versus firing him at the end of the season and getting your guy doesn't do too much for recruiting.
Right.
And that kind of stuff. So I think Hartson specifically at Auburn, I think they're just kind of being patient and seeing who becomes available.
Yeah. Yeah. And Anthony saying, coach at WVL, Neil Brown. Look, I watched him. Right, her Catherine's parents and family live in West Virginia, and diehard Mountaineer fans. We watched that game. You can't look. We've all known how Texas is struggling, and they put up 28 on them quick.
Yeah,
really quickly. Now, mind you, the second touchdown was like a wide receiver pass. It went deep. It was a trick play. Got him. But even on that, and there was another one where they threw it to Worthy. The guy went up to catch it. It tipped off his hands. Worthy catches it in the end zone. But yeah, when you're looking up at 28 early, it's not a good look. It's not a good look. And look, he's had, we talked about them earlier. They got up to 2-2 after beating Virginia Tech. And they tried to come back in this one, but it looks stressful. I don't know that they're going to be that he's on the hot seat per se, but because he can still get them going. But if they don't make a bowl game this year, take a look for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with Andrew's next comment there. Brent Brennan at San Jose State, he's definitely deserving of a bigger job.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
Oh yeah. And we'll see. And I'm interested about that because on one side, you're absolutely right. Give him a better job. Let him go. But that's one of the issues we kind of do have with, coaches moving. You talk about Lincoln Riley going, Brent Venables going, and I'm all about guys getting a new opportunity. But when you have somebody like this, you look at Luke Fickell in Cincinnati. He could have easily, after taking Cincinnati to the Final Four, he could have easily moved on and gone somewhere else. But he decided to stay. Now, he might not have got super great, bigger, super offers or whatever, but I think building the program is bigger than getting the next best job.
And there's certain factors that go into that, like for Fickell, for example, he just recruited his kid there. His kid's an offensive lineman that's just starting out.
Yeah.
So realistically, I think that played a big part too, is not wanting to have to force his kid to transfer or just continue what you're building there and just keep it rolling.
Yeah. Yeah. Jimbo would be in the hot seat if they didn't have a stupid bio. Yeah. I mean, I think they're kind of locked in with him. They kind of sold on him. I mean, he still beat Alabama last year. And if you can do that and you can beat Saban, a lot of people will give you that they'll buy you a year, if anything. You know what I mean? So yeah, we'll see. We'll definitely
get Ed Orgeron, won a national championship, and they gave him 2 bad years.
Right. So look, there's that definitely, and there's very few things that are like notches that you can say, boom, okay, that's gonna shield me. You know what I mean? Yeah. One of them is beating Alabama. The other one, you guys know it in Georgia, Anthony, win a national championship. And I mean, shoot, they'll buy you 2 or 3 years. You win a national championship and beat Alabama in the national championship. I mean, that might buy you 5, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah.
He said his in the better than him as his predecessors at this point. Yes, but his name, and the history. He has won a national championship. He does have, a solid defense. I think with them, they just haven't found their quarterback yet.
Yep. Because look at what he's doing with recruiting.
Right.
Top 5 class year in and year out.
Exactly.
So he's doing good things for the program. It's not necessarily showing up in the win-loss record how they'd like it yet. But again, like you said, that's the quarterback.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we shall see. Oh, hey. Hey, if only that were true. If only that were true.
There's not many bigger jobs, so.
Yeah. And if he wants to do, that'd be great. If he can do that, I do think that a lot of people kind of look at what Saban has done in Alabama, and they kind of feel like, okay, at my program, we can do that too, and we can keep our guy but to be honest with you, I think Saban does that, and I think no matter how great he is, I think a lot of times, sometimes we overlook the fact that he is in the national championship every year. People are like, oh, last year, they lost a game and that didn't really mark against them. Well, we know what product is going to be on the field. We know what they're going to bring to the table year in and year out. And until there's only very few teams that you can say that about. Ohio State's one of them. Clemson over the last about 8 to 10 years has been another one, where each year they are going to be in that Final Four conversation, period. That's just the way it is. So I think that's going to be interesting to see what happens. I definitely think if Kirby does not win it these next couple of years, I'm not saying he's on the way out, but Anthony, you already see how Georgia fans are.
Look at what he just put there too. He was contemplating retirement.
Yeah.
So what's to say he doesn't walk away in the next couple of years?
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing. Not everybody's like Saban, where it's like I need to continue to get, or like Brady, I need to continue to get titles and this and that. A lot of people getting that one, and maybe a second one. That's it. That's it. A lot of people, that's all they need. So we shall definitely see. Hey, look, we'll see what happens to some of these coaches, but we definitely want to move on. Another topic we had on as a bulletin board material. Got to stay home. Got to stay home in my favorite conference, ACC, who coming into this year, you and I talked about it. The ACC is turning into quarterback conference with a lot of huge names. We know about DJ Uiagalelei, Sam Hartman, Devin Leary, my guy.
Yeah.
We
didn't know about him then. We do know about him now. That's for damn sure.
Exactly. So, we're going to dive into the ACC quarterbacks because last year we've seen, the aforementioned names that I said before, put in there, Malik Cunningham, Armstrong, Van Dyke had a great year towards the end. Brennan Armstrong. Schrader. Right. So these guys have had good years towards the end of this year, but things are a little different this year. Let's get into it with the studs. First and foremost, you got Sam Hartman out of Wake Forest, Devin O'Leary out of NC State, Drake Maye out of my North Carolina Tar Heels, and DJ Uiagalelei out of Clemson. These are the four guys that have separated themselves from the pack. At least on our list, I know about maybe two, maybe even three is kind of at least in contention somewhere along the list for Heisman, or at least in that conversation. So when you look at these names, what are your thoughts? Who do you think kind of is the top of this list? And do you agree with this list? I mean, first and foremost.
I agree with these four. Absolutely. They have separated themselves from the rest of the pack. To me, it's kind of you could almost separate it again, in my opinion. You go 1 and 2 and a 3 and 4. To me, Hartman and Drake Maye, what they've done this season has been so freaking impressive against the competition they've gone against. And their numbers speak for themselves. And Hartman is just moment after moment after moment since he came back. Like that shootout with Uiagalelei the other week, just a phenomenal game. Both of them played very, very well. Uiagalelei has been a little too up and down for me.
Yeah.
So to me, it's him and O'Leary are that 3-4, and Hartman's to me still the clear number 1, but Drake Maye has had a phenomenal season, and he's locked up that number 2 spot for me. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, Hartman, and I think it was kind of unfair. I get it, but I think it was kind of unfair that since he had that undisclosed injury earlier in the year, they kind of took him out of Heisman contention. He's still one of the premier quarterbacks coming out.
Absolutely.
And going into the draft this coming year. And like I told people, I remember when I was talking to Anthony and them, and we were talking about Vanderbilt. And Vanderbilt played in week 3. They played Wake Forest. And before that game, Hartman was out. So I said, Vandy, I think they can get the dub. I think they can pull it out. Soon as I heard Hartman was back, switch. Okay, they're like, you change again? I said, yes. Hartman is that type of guy. He is a pro-level quarterback in college. He showed it last year, and I think he's going to show it again this year. Almost 1,200 yards. Like I said, 15 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Hartman is a pro guy, but like you said, I can't take away from my guy. I got to take away.
He's earned all the praise. He has
every bit of it. Every last bit of it led us to a 4-1 record, and is absolutely balling out. We're not going to get too ahead of ourselves, but he's definitely in certain lists.
Yeah.
But look, almost 1,600 yards, 19 touchdowns, only 1 interception. But I think the big part that people are kind of sleeping on, my guy is the second leading rusher for North Carolina, 255 yards and 3 touchdowns. Almost 5 yards a carry. So we ain't getting ahead of ourselves, but this guy is making a name for himself at a young age on the field, doing things that his successor, Mr. Sam Howell, was doing before him. So, I mean, can we really look at this guy? Like, can we believe this hype?
I'm all in on him. From what I've seen, like for me, that game against Appalachian State solidified it for me.
Absolutely.
Just the ability you got punched in the mouth early and he helped you claw your way back and just took over that game, dominated them the rest of the way. And just that fire he had in himself to drive that team forward. I was sold right there on him.
Yep. And honestly, that's the thing that I think is really key with him is that he's faced adversity. You talk about that App State game. They were down 21-7. He immediately jumps up, and you get up 41-21, but then they come right back. He has not had the support of his defense, so he's had to do a lot of it. And at the same time, he hasn't had downs every single week. You know what I mean?
Yep.
He had to get involved to get Devin Green involved. He had to get his tight end Nesbitt, the true freshman tight end Nesbitt involved. So he's utilizing his pieces. They're like I said, he's the second leading rusher on the team. So we don't have that dominant of a rushing game, but I honestly feel like just the poise. There's the word they used about my quarterback, Sam Howell. He has moxie.
He absolutely does.
He honestly each time he goes out there, he just is ready to ball. He's ready to play, and I love what I'm seeing from him. And I hope they can sustain it. Hey, you know what it is. Tar Heels, baby. Absolutely. But so we talked about DJ lately. Devin O'Leary, NC State, still doing well, still playing good ball. But he kind of gets lost in all this.
Yeah, he does. He's helped separate himself, but he's also kind of in discussion to go down to that next tier.
Yeah.
And it's just all these other guys wow you in one way or another.
Yeah.
Sam Hartman can make every throw. Drake Maye just never gives up and has all that fight in him. And Uiagalelei is the best athlete out of all the quarterbacks in that conference and in debate for the whole nation. Mm-hmm. So they've all got that one piece that absolutely wows you. And Devin O'Leary is just solid across the board.
Yeah. So
he doesn't get as much respect as he deserves, but he doesn't go and take it like the rest of these guys do.
Very true. Very true. And I wonder, he has NC State ranked 14th. I wonder, are they maybe they are a more complete team,
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So that, and so there he doesn't have to do as much, maybe like a Drake Maye or, DJ Uiagalelei. He has a great defense, but, Shipley, he has a couple pieces on offense, but like you said, you're still kind of like two up and down. So, I can definitely see O'Leary potentially teetering on that line, but he's a leader. And I think that's something that all four of these guys have proven that they can be this year. But going to that next part of that list, you got Louisville's Malik Cunningham, Jeff Sims from Georgia Tech, who finally led them to a victory even after college left. Kedon Slovis over at Pitt, just got the L. Garrett Schrader, who replaced, what I'm talking about, from at Syracuse.
I know what you're talking about. I can't think of his name though. The same as you. Yeah,
I was looking at his name. What's his name? Oh, I can't think of his name right now. But who Schrader replaced somebody who was playing at Illinois, I believe. I'm going to look that up. I'll have it. And then, can't believe I'm saying this, but Duke's quarterback Riley Leonard is on the list. First and foremost, let me just say this. The Coastal Division is being led by the Duke Blue Devils, who, ladies and gentlemen, are 4-1. What?
And who's their only loss?
Right. Kansas. What?
Undefeated Kansas.
What are we doing? What is this, Alex? What world are we in?
Basketball's taking over college football, I guess. Man.
Oh, man. When you look at these names, what are your thoughts? I mean, like we said, this is up and coming. This is that second tier down here. There's a couple names that could potentially move up. Malik Cunningham definitely comes to mind. But
absolutely.
At the same time, there is limitations. There's a lot more of a chance of an up and down play as opposed to what you're going to get.
100%. And Malik Cunningham to me is the best out of this group. Just that overall ability to take over a game, whether it's with his arms or with his legs. Not as accurate as you'd like him to be, though. And I think that's his limitation and what puts him in the second tier instead of being up there at the top. Jeff Sims looked awful the first few weeks and then came out and played well last week. So again, kind of hit or miss there. Kedon Slovis, I like him. But again, too up and down, too many mistakes, and then too many good plays, just back and forth. Let's get some consistency there. Garrett Schrader is very underrated. What he's doing at Syracuse and leading them to be undefeated so far is very impressive.
Yeah.
So he's pushing that upper tier as well for me. And Riley Leonard, it's an interesting one. Like seeing a Duke quarterback do this well. I mean, Daniel Jones did well in college, but to see a Duke quarterback play this well is quite surprising.
I can't. This is taking. Look. I'm objective. I can talk about anybody. F Duke, but Riley Leonard is a solid quarterback, dual threat quarterback. Almost 1,200 yards, 7 TDs, and only 2 interceptions. They got a new coach and Coach Elko, who's really got them believing in him and what they got going on. We know about their running game with Coleman, who has over 300 yards and 4 TDs. So their offense is being able to move down the field. Their defense is playing up to par. I mean, look. This is not what we're used to. We talked about it last Saturday, how Duke, Kentucky, Kansas, and North Carolina, 4 teams with 3-0 for the first time ever in college football. Yeah. Now, as we saw, Duke played Kansas, so Duke was the one to take the L. But it makes you it makes you feel good to see these guys who are not necessarily looked at as a top tier school doing good, and not just. Oh, it's Duke. Here we go. That's an easy win. You know what I mean? And look, same with Jeff Sims. Everybody had left him for dead once Jeff Collins had been fired from Georgia Tech. But shout out to him. They came to play. He was able to make one of the game-winning touchdowns, so they were able to beat Pitt, a ranked Pitt team. Hey, Georgia Tech, Georgia, I'm talking to y'all. Watch out. Maybe not that much, but we'll see.
Yeah, I don't know about going that far.
But. We'll know about that. Oh, man. But look, I do want to talk about Malik. Malik Cunningham out of Louisville. I mean, I've been on record calling him a poor man's Lamar Jackson. You know what I mean? This guy can play. You see his ability, but does he have enough help?
I don't think so, personally. And it kind of reminds me of what Lamar did at Louisville, because Lamar didn't have much in the way of help. He had to do a lot of it himself. You see all those highlight tapes of him spinning people and running around people and running away from people. And there wasn't too much in the way of passing because, again, didn't really have the weapons. So we're kind of seeing that with Malik. And it's tough because it makes it hard to evaluate him.
Right. Because
is it him that's missing these throws and not being accurate, or our receivers not running the right depths of routes, or how many of these, if you don't watch the tape and just look at the numbers, how many are drops, and how it makes it really hard to evaluate them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And look, and at the end of the day, I mean, a lot of it comes to the wins and the losses. You know what I mean? They got stomped by Syracuse 31-7. They're in a game close, going back and forth with Florida State, but unfortunately was not able to pull that out. And then you lose a nail biter to daggone Boston College. Now
that's
he
not
was
one
hurt.
You should have lost.
Right. Now he got hurt later in that game, so that definitely went against him. Maybe people was thinking that maybe if he was in the game, maybe things would be a little bit different. But the record definitely does not help. But he's got the talent. But we'll see. We will definitely see. Now, look, there is 2 quarterbacks that we feel is definitely underachieved, and it's really not even close. These guys have struggled. We talk about Tyler Van Dyke out of Miami, who North Carolina will be playing this weekend, so that's going to be an interesting game. And then also Brennan Armstrong, new coach, kind of new offense maybe, but he's just struggling. Nowhere near the production that he had a year ago. What's causing these guys to struggle?
It's a good question and both of these guys are in the same situation. Both of them have new coaches, new offenses. I don't really know that Van Dyke's built for the scheme that Josh Gaddis wants to run there. So that's something to look at there because he's got weapons galore. He's just not getting it done. I mean, Middle Tennessee State, obviously, A&M, there's different levels of competition where he's not getting it done. So It's crazy to think that both of these guys were getting first-round considerations for the draft this year at one point, and now they're both plummeting down draft boards.
Right.
So they've got some time to turn it around here, but yeah, they're definitely that bottom tier right now. They're definitely underachieving.
Yeah, it's frustrating to see. I was one of these guys that was talking about, telling you Brennan Armstrong, he's going to do it. He's going to be that guy. Watch out for Virginia next year. That's one of the ones I was scared about coming into the season, but he just hasn't looked good. Tony Elliott, new coach in there, whole different kind of thing going on. So, I mean, but it just shows in his play. I mean, yes, he has over 1,000 yards, but he has 4 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. And that's just not playing winning football. That's not playing winning football. Let me see. Anthony said, all right, fellas, I got to balance. But I'm going to try and throw out my contribution to the Heisman list. Who fell off? Stetson. Last 2 performances were lackluster and looked very off his game against Mizzou. Yeah.
Very true.
I'll agree.
Very true.
Agree. And before you go, let's just settle this now. Just because I put him on the Heisman list and finally gave him credit does not mean that's what made him say it. All right. It was not me. It was not me, Anthony. Let's go. He could maybe get back on the list if he digs out a the rest of the season, but for now, it's no. Yeah, look, I mean, at the end of the day, you're still undefeated. At the end of the day, you're still the top 5 team, top 3. You only fell 1 spot, and honestly, he's going to need to put forth some Heisman moments, and he will have those opportunities going down the line playing top SEC talent. So we'll see what happens. But I kind of agree with you right now. Another one that fell, you talked about Van Dyke. Can Van Dyke get back in that? Like if Van Dyke has a huge game this week against North Carolina, against somebody that is kind of we're talking about as maybe a potential dark horse, can Van Dyke get back on there? Like what does he have to do?
In my opinion, he's already sealed his fate with that Middle Tennessee State game. Yeah, I don't think he can get back in.
Yeah.
I think it's too little too late, which sounds weird saying it in week 5 out of 12, but he's had his moment to shine and he did not already. So I think that's it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And that's at the end of the day, that's all that matters right there.
It is. Absolutely. I can dig it. Absolutely, buddy. We'll do. Hey,
dude.
Matter of fact, real quick, stay real quick because we definitely are about to transition off. And I did it twice on the last show. And I'm going to go ahead and do it now. We're going to transition real quick before we bring you some talk about the top 25. Before we do, my guy Anthony Handy was on a show last night, and it was the Roundtable with our guy Nicholas Rosario and Mr. Lila Crespo. And just check this out. This was too funny.
So I'm going to take the Lions +3 in this one over the Patriots. If anybody can tame a bird, it's definitely an. Now, see, this is what I'm talking about, ladies and gentlemen. This gentleman is on the show, and yet during my segment, what is he doing? Playing around on his computer, making notes, telling jokes, trying to be a funny guy. Do I do that during your segment, sir? Do I sit there and make comments? Do I laugh at you? No, I do not, sir. What is this? I thought we had a better relationship than this. You know what? Don't make me go Shannon Sharp on you, because I'm telling you, let me tell you something there, Skip. I don't think this is right. Because you be making comments during my segment. I don't think this is funny. I don't think it's funny at all. And let me tell you something else. When I was playing for the Broncos, I caught every pass that threw to me. Let me tell you something, Skip Bayless. That's what I'm saying to you. Take that. So anyway, there you go.
Jokes aside, that is a dope Shannon Sharp impersonation.
Oh my God. So good.
Oh my God, that's how you know it's good. Every time I see it, I can't stop laughing. I love it. It is absolutely amazing. So check them out Tuesday night.
Absolutely.
At 8:30 Eastern. Let's talk football, the round table, where you get laughs on laughs on laughs on laughs. Yep.
Oh, me too, Ash.
Absolutely. That was classic television. Yeah. So, we are going to go ahead and move on here on Let's Talk Football College Update. We're going to move on and talk about that top 25. So I'm going to bring this up real quick. There was some moves. Some people got knocked out. Some people hopped in. Here is where we stand at the moment. Top 5 is pretty much similar. Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, and Clemson. You got USC, Oklahoma State, Tennessee, Ole Miss, and Penn State. You got Utah, Oregon, Kentucky, North Carolina State, and Wake Forest. Then you got BYU, TCU, UCLA, Kansas. Wow, at Kansas State, interesting. And then Washington State, Syracuse, Mississippi State, Cincinnati, and LSU on this list. We've seen what's happened, but really quick, I would like to address something that seems to always happen at some point each season. Bama goes back up to number one with a pretty solid victory over Arkansas. What are your thoughts? Is this rightfully so?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, you can make an argument for Ohio State to go to number one.
Mm-hmm.
But with that beatdown of Arkansas just happening and losing Bryce Young and still imposing your will, like Jalen Milroe looked really good. And you were able to do whatever you wanted for the majority of the game. There were parts where Arkansas climbed back in, but you manhandled them the entire first half, and in the fourth quarter, you shut the door.
Yeah.
Against a very good Arkansas football team. So to me, that was enough with what happened this week to push them up.
Oh yeah. And should we be on notice about that backup quarterback at Alabama?
I think so. He's not the passer they've had the last few years, but man, can he move.
Oh yeah.
And you give him a little bit of time to work on that passing, and look out.
Absolutely. And you definitely want to shout out what they had going on. Like you said, Jahmyr Gibbs finally had his breakthrough day, over 200 yards and 2 TDs. So definitely something. And hey, right back up. But the reason this happened is because Georgia went into Missouri and barely came away with the W. They went 26-22 in a game that they were trailing most of that game. Anthony talked about it. Stetson did not look good. One of the things that they were talking about was that they kind of felt like, you have that number one title on you, and, you get a little gunshot, you get a little nervous. Personally,
all eyes are on you.
Well, yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Personally, I heard Nick Saban, he was interviewing today, and he was saying basically, one of the things he tells the kids is don't believe the hype. Don't believe the rat poison. Go in there regardless of your record, regardless of the score, like everybody is going to give you their best shot. And if you do that and you cancel out all the noise, there you go. But that's what those top tier teams can do. That's what the Clemsons, the Alabamas, the Ohio States, they can do. They know they're going to get your best test, and you might beat them every once in a while, but for the most part, they're gonna distance
take care of it.
Yep. Right. So this, and it's not the first. A week ago, Kent State put up 22 on them. Okay, and ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know, the reason why we're so kind of up in arms about this, they played Oregon and who else? The number 2 team, South Carolina or whatever, and that was only 10 points between the two of those. 1-7 and 1-3. And if you saw on the sidelines, Georgia was pissed. Those players were mad when they allowed them to score, but they almost lost this, man. Talk to me about this.
Yeah, well, and it's crazy to think about it because Oregon and South Carolina are both better than Missouri and Kent State.
Yeah.
And you manhandled those two teams, imposed your will offensively, defensively, and on special teams. Every second of those games, you were in control.
Yeah.
There was not one moment where those games were in question. Unless you were talking about it before the kickoff. And then you come to these games and it's like, okay, we don't even need to discuss Georgia against Kent State. We don't need to discuss Georgia against Missouri because Georgia's Georgia. They're just going to go in, handle their business, win by 40 points, and that'll be that. And then you start watching these games and it's like, holy crap, what's going on?
Yeah.
And to see it 2 weeks in a row is kind of concerning. They're still going to handle their business. They'll still be a playoff team. But you can't play like this the rest of the way. You've got Kentucky and some of these other Florida and some of these other teams that you got to play. And it's going to be a dogfight to get through those games.
Absolutely. Week in and week out. You said Nick Saban said something post game that bothered me. Let us know in the chat what he said.
Yeah.
Can we talk about Maryland 35? Nathan, I don't know if you noticed. This is top 25. Okay.
Now, I'll say they should be in there. I think they should be top 25.
Nathan,
I would put them.
You got.
I'd put them at 24. I'd put them at 24.
Ooh.
I would.
Okay.
Over Cincinnati, over LSU. I'm putting them in there.
Okay.
They've played some damn good football teams. They went toe-to-toe with us. I got mad respect for them.
Tar Heels need to be up there too. All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can whack some Maryland Terrapins.
Now, see, here's the thing. Maryland's only loss is that close loss to Michigan.
True.
They're 4-1.
Yeah.
Like, to me, with that being your only loss against a top 5 team and you went to their house and made it a close game.
Very true.
Nathan, I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit for 30 tops there. You guys should be in the top 25. I will fight that tooth and nail.
Yeah. They have the talent, honestly. And like you said, playing the game they did and then putting in the work on Michigan State. You know what I mean? Now, again, if you lose, the more games Michigan State loses, which seems like that's kind of the trajectory that they're going, it's not going to help. But having what they did a year ago and having who they've been the last couple of years, I think that's definitely a stepping stone for Maryland going up against two top tier teams in Michigan and playing them tough, top of the line. Hey, that's definitely shout out to you. And hopefully you guys will get up in there. I didn't want to, staying with like kind of around the top 5, you talked about this team. USC is legit on offense. We know about Travis Dye. We know about the quarterback Caleb Williams. We know about Jordan Addison, Mario Williams. We know about that offense. They are lights out on offense. Defense, they let Arizona State kind of come back in this game, man. So would they be able to sustain against the top tier teams?
Well, you talk about Georgia. That's 2 weeks in a row for USC, where they let lower tier teams hang in. They barely escaped Oregon State, and then ASU holds their own in that game relatively against them. The reason why I don't think they'll run the table and beat both Utah and Oregon and have to beat one of these other teams again is not only that defense, but that offensive line. Caleb Williams is getting smacked around.
He is.
And like 3-4 times a week where it's like, oh God, like, please get up. Like, he gets rocked every week. And that worries the hell out of me. And especially against Utah. Utah is going to beat him up.
Yeah.
Utah is smash mouth physical football. So they're going to have to score 45, 50 points a game against those guys to have a chance.
Oh, absolutely.
Because with the defense, while it's opportunistic and has, I believe, the most turnovers in the nation, it's not going to be enough when you get to these elite teams.
Right.
They're not going to turn the ball over.
Yeah.
You can get Stanford to fumble the ball, and you can get Oregon State to throw interceptions and all these other schools. But when you get to Oregon, when you get to Utah, when you get to bowl season, it's not going to be enough.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, and you talk about Utah. Let's talk about their next 3 matchups. Washington State, 4-1. They go play at Utah, 4-1.
I think that's an L.
I mean, come on now. Can they hang with these top teams? And like, they haven't really faced this kind of adversity going up against legitimate teams. We know what Utah did. I mean, that Florida game was super close. They barely lost that one. And then Washington State is no slouch this year. They're ready to play some teams. We've seen what they've been able to do. So, USC, I mean, how confident are we that they can remain undefeated going through the season?
I have no faith they'll remain undefeated, honestly. They're still going to win 10, 11, maybe 12 games, go like 12-1, something like that. But I don't think you can play Utah in Utah and handle that, and then play Oregon and handle that. And Nathan, I'm thinking 11 or 12 is kind of where I'm at. I don't think they lose a bunch of games. It's 1 or 2 losses.
Yeah. But I think, and that's all the way throughout the season. So adding in the bowl game, potentially adding in, the Pac-12 championship, right? Yeah, you know what I mean. So they're going to. I think I definitely can see them getting to 11 or 12 myself. I mean, they can do it, but at the same time, like you said about the undefeated part, I do not think that. I think there's going to be a slip up out there, just because they, like you said, they're not proven. To me, they're not proven. We have to see what they can do, not against the the Pac-12, but when it gets to Big Ten, against the SEC, or some of these other teams that, like you said, are more disciplined, don't make the mistakes that these guys may be prone to making. Plus, it depends on how
Absolutely.
well they're right.
But if they're getting 11, 12 wins, they're playing somebody good. They're not playing any slouch. That's
exactly.
For sure. That's a New Year's bowl game, and that's trouble.
Yeah. So he had asked the question earlier, does the schedule cover that? They're ready to bring in the bright lights yet. I mean, coming into it,
yes.
Yeah. Their schedule is definitely going to do that. And I'm going to piggyback this one onto a question he asked before. He said he wanted to get our thoughts on scheduling because some of these teams are playing cupcakes in the early season. The Georgias, the Alabamas, Ohio State's getting involved. Michigan, UConn, that game,
We had 3 cupcakes to start the season.
Right. That I addressed on this week in Georgia football. They just switched the name up. I personally think that it'd be nice. I mean, I see that they're trying to do it with, some of the earlier games where they're having the big top tier matchups, the backyard brawl being early, having what Georgia and Oregon was supposed to be.
Ohio State, Notre Dame.
Well, right. Yeah. So Florida, what was it? FSU,
Florida, Utah.
LSU. Yeah.
Yeah.
So these are all they are trying to do that, but it does they do schedule in those cupcakes. They do schedule in teams that are not as great, or they try to. Let's not forget how many teams scheduled App State and got whooped, got beat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Middle Tennessee for Miami. I'm sure they didn't think they was going to do nothing and then got beat. East Carolina for NC State. Like some of these teams are, even though they're deemed cupcakes, they're still playing football and they're playing good football. And so, yes, they do get cupcakes. And I guess you can call it cupcakes when one team is so good and the other team is just not going to hit that level. But they still got to strap up. They still got to play. So, I mean, I don't think it's going to change because
it should, but it's not going to.
Yeah, I just don't think it's going to happen because the other part about that is you hear, what App State got 1 point some odd million to play A&M or something like that. At FAMU, that they got a couple 100,000 to come play us, even without a full roster that they were putting out on the field. So these programs are getting money from these bigger programs, and that's helping them build their own program. And if that means they got to sacrifice, these games, you've seen what happened. Syracuse put up 59 on Wagner, and the whole second half they played 10-minute quarters. So this is, that's just part of college football, in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, like it is what it is. We, like you touched on, they use that money to build their programs. Yeah. So they're going to come in, take these whoopings, and go home with that nice fat checkbook. So, me personally, I'd like to see it, especially once they get to these super conferences. You're kind of split it like when we get to the, say, 20-team conferences that we're probably eventually getting to, then you split it, and your non-division games are the top. If you're in that top 5 in, say, the Big Ten, then you play the top 5 from the SEC. Yeah. And like just kind of like that, or they all get put into a pool and you just kind of, it's drawn out of a hat essentially, like all randomized. And then, okay, this year, Georgia's playing Ohio State, and you get the Penn State Auburn and those kind of matchups, right? So I think that would be the best thing, and especially with the playoffs expanding, these teams are going to be more likely to take on bigger matchups because they're going to be less afraid of a loss.
Yeah.
But I understand why they're being done this way for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Do you guys see Auburn making any moves? Any more coaches that can go? We'll see. Maybe Auburn. He's going to have to get it done, but he has been still hanging on by the skin of his teeth. And we would have thought they would have made that move a couple weeks ago. When Penn State put that whooping on them. Yeah. So I can't call it right now. I don't know why he's still there, but hey, I think I think the team, the players, I think those guys believe in him. I think they're playing for him because they're not flat when they're coming out here. They're in these games. They just can't seem to finish, on some of them. So, I don't know. We shall definitely see. But like you alluded to earlier, we have new additions. We have teams that dropped out. Yeah. Who do we lose? Who dropped out of the top 25?
A lot.
Yeah.
So 16th Baylor, dropped out. 17th A&M dropped out. 18th Oklahoma. 20th Arkansas. 21st Minnesota.
Jeez.
23 Florida State. 24th Pittsburgh. Like, you had a ton of teams drop out. That's what? 7 teams left the top 25.
Yeah.
Absolutely insane.
That is craziness. You talk about some of these losses. It's just like one, it was all good just a week ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A week ago, we were sitting pretty. We were high. Minnesota's one of those teams where I'm like, oh, you felt so good. You put that whooping on Michigan State.
Yeah.
Yes, you got
that was a rough one.
Right.
Rough one.
Right. So,
One Florida State too. Like,
so it's interesting because the numbers are switching in and out. Now, who replaced them? Who were the ones that came in as a result of these guys getting out?
So TCU's all the way up to 17 after that beatdown of Oklahoma. UCLA's all the way up to 18 after beating Washington there.
Mm-hmm.
Kansas is finally in there all the way up to 19. I'm so happy to see that.
About time.
Syracuse is in at 22. Yeah, very well deserved. Syracuse 22, Mississippi State 23, Cincinnati in at 24, LSU at 25.
Okay, that's interesting. That's looking at that. Matter of fact, let me bring that up really quickly so we can check. That is just crazy to look at. You see that the last 2 rows. You got BYU, TCU, UCLA, Kansas State, Washington, Syracuse, Mississippi State, Cincinnati. And this ain't Cincinnati from a year ago. Like,
nope.
That more power to them for being able to get up in there. Do you think any of those ones that are coming in could, keep it going? I mean, like UCLA undefeated. Shout out to Syracuse undefeated. Like, what do we think?
UCLA right now, the Pac-12 is kind of like a 4-team race. It's USC, it's Utah, Oregon, UCLA. I guess you could throw Washington in there still. So we'll say 5 teams, all kind of competing for those top 2 spots for the conference championship game. So maybe there. TCU, the Big 12, is looking pretty good right now across the board. So that's interesting there. Same with Kansas. See how long this Cinderella story can go for.
Right.
It seems weird calling Kansas a Cinderella story. Syracuse, I don't think so. I think once they get into the thick of that ACC there, I think they're going to fall off.
Yeah.
Mississippi State, I don't think so. Cincinnati, I don't think so. LSU, I don't think so.
Yeah. So, hey, it might be short-lived, but enjoy your time in there.
Yeah.
Shout out to Nathan Snell. Talk about his team. We talked about them, Maryland potentially being up and the top 25 eventually. If they continue to win, especially in the Big Ten, now they're in that Big Ten schedule, they could definitely get up there. North Carolina, we're getting into that ACC schedule, so playing Miami, that'd be a huge victory, although their strength of schedule and how they played is not great. Notching another win on that belt and continuing to have Drake Maye throw for, solid yards and only that 1 interception, I definitely think that'll move us up.
You guys will get in there in a week or 2. I have no doubt about that.
Yeah. So let's definitely hope for that. I did want to bring this up, and I alluded to it with a couple of teams on there. There are some teams that are still undefeated. One of them being you guys, a couple rivals in the Big Ten, some SEC guys, Syracuse, who we just talked about. Let's take a look at this, and I'm gonna talk to you. Talk to me about who you talked to. We just talked about this. So you're seeing these teams on here. There's only 2 that are not in the top 25, and that's JMU and that's Coastal Carolina.
Yeah.
Do they move up to the top 25? Can they sustain it? Or then other teams like TCU, can they sustain this kind of top-tier play?
JMU and Coastal Carolina, those are 2 interesting ones just because they're in those group of 5 conferences, Sun Belt, American, those kind of conferences. So while they're not slouches, it doesn't help the strength of schedule as much.
Right.
So there's an argument to be made there. I think the longer they remain undefeated, the sooner you'll have to put them in.
Yeah.
Because it's not like they're playing total slouches. So, again, I don't know that TCU can hang on much longer. Kansas is kind of iffy for me too. Mm-hmm. And then the other top ones, I mean, you look at it again, there's like Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State all have to play each other. So
exactly.
There's a realistic chance none of them come out undefeated. Alabama, Georgia, like some of those
Same
SEC
thing.
teams, they all have to eat each other alive. So I think come playoff time, you're going to have anywhere, like I think you'll have at least one undefeated team, but there will be 1 to maybe 3 undefeated teams. I don't really see any more than that.
Yeah.
Come December.
Yeah. So yeah, and even this number of teams has dwindled down
A lot
over the last couple of weeks. So and it is just week 5. A lot of these guys are getting into those conference schedules. So we will see. We're gonna take a look at it one more time. Ohio State, JMU, Penn State, Tennessee, Oklahoma State, Syracuse, UCLA, USC, Bama, Georgia, Kansas, Ole Miss, Michigan, the Chanticleers, TCU, and Clemson. Clemson is another one that over the last couple of years, last 10 years, they've been, we're top of the ACC, but some of these ACT teams are ready to give them a little trouble. I know we're up there if we can stop anybody, but Wake Forest, we talk about Devin O'Leary and NC State. A lot of these
they both
teams,
push them to the limit.
Exactly. And so these teams are ready to give Clemson a little run. So we'll see if Clemson comes back. I mean, they were 10-3 last year, even though a lot of people, including myself, thought they fell off.
Me too.
You know what I mean? So, hey, they are back. So we will definitely see. But look, ladies and gentlemen, really quickly, we are going to move on. And we got one more little conversation for you. Our dear friend Anthony Handy brought it up a little bit earlier, and we appreciate that. Talking about his quarterback. I'm talking about my quarterback. Maybe even a little conversation about his quarterback, Mr. J.J. McCarthy. We'll see how that goes. But this, ladies and gentlemen, is the Heisman Watch.
With team success comes individual success. So without y'all,
it wouldn't be nothing. The team effort brings the singular guy. I'm so glad. This is where we're talking about the Heisman Watch. There's a number of guys out there, but I want to start with our top 5. So I'm going to give it to you first. Top 5. Who's on your Heisman? Who's number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5? And who do you think is going to win it?
All right. Well, I'm going to start from 5.
Okay.
Because I'm going to get your guy out of the way first. I got Drake Maye in the top 5. Let's go. He's worked his way in there. I love what he's been doing against really good competition. So to me, there's no debate for me. He's in there.
Yeah.
Number 4, I got my guy. I got Blake Corum. Not JJ. I got Blake Corum.
Okay.
Leading the nation in rushing touchdowns. He's had 200-yard game after 200-yard game. And I know the first few games we didn't play anybody, but we still played Maryland. We still played Iowa, 2 very good defenses. Mm-hmm. And he's still imposing his will there. So I got him at number 4. And then it's still these top 3 have kind of separated themselves. We'll see if my number 3, Bryce Young, ends up playing this week because he hurt his shoulder on Saturday. To me, he just hasn't done quite as much as these other 2, so he slid down to number 3 for me. Number 2, I got Caleb Williams from USC. He's done everything you can possibly do as a quarterback. Finally threw his first interception against Oregon State. He's been phenomenal all year long. Has that chemistry with Lincoln Riley, and they're on the same wavelength. And just anything they want to do, they do it. So to me, he's been impressive. But number 1 for me is still CJ Stroud. The same kind of thing. He's been able to do whatever he's wanted. And to me, the difference is they played a little bit better competition. Right. So Stroud and Caleb Williams are very close for me. And then there's a little step down to Bryce Young. And then there's a pretty big step to Corum and Maye still. Mm-hmm. But yeah, for me, that's my 5. Oh,
I could dig it. Now, I am not going to push my guy up there just yet. I got him on the outside looking in, but he would still, they allowed him to be in the crowd, not in the front row, but he'd be in the crowd. So I'll do with my guy, Drake Maye. But number 5 for me is Hendon Hooker. Hendon Hooker is leading that Tennessee team right now. He has almost 1,200 yards, 8 touchdowns, no interceptions. That him and Josh Heupel have worked together on this offense. They've had tough matchups. We've seen what they did against Florida. And that's that we needed that. He needed that. We're going to talk about Heisman moments later. He needed these type of games where he's going up against top tier talent, good, solid defenses, and especially in this conference and coming out successful. And it's just going to, murderer's row. He's just going to have to play more and more and more guys. So he'll have the opportunity to continue to get that the Heisman moment. As far as my number 4, I just honestly I think we have to give this man credit, and this position doesn't normally get love, but when you have a guy that is dang on good, out of Georgia, man, look, Brock Bowers, he's a man amongst boys, by far the best tight end in the country, in my opinion. I honestly think he is what gets that offense moving for Georgia. We saw 100%. Kent State. He took a jet sweep 75 yards and just outran the whole entire team. These are still athletes on the field, and he just outran this team. I mean, we say what Michael Mayer for Notre Dame is a baby Gronk, but I think we got to stay right here for baby Gronk. You know what I mean? I mean,
I don't know that there is a comp for Brock Bowers. I don't know that we've realistically ever seen what we're seeing from Brock Bowers right now. No. Like I've been one of these people that's saying if you put him out at wide receiver right now, he might be a top 5 wide receiver in the nation.
Right.
He's separated himself as the best tight end to me. Obviously, he's not draft eligible. That's why Mayer's still number 1 there. But the things he's doing as a tight end is just mind-blowing.
Yeah. And you can see Kirby Smart. I know he absolutely is having a ball figuring out new plays and new ways to get Brock Bowers the ball. But look, we saw what he did for that offense a year ago. And that's when Stetson was still kind of learning the ropes, still kind of shaky with it. And he is only getting better this year. We've seen what he did in the first couple weeks of the season. So that is my number 4. And honestly, my 3 are pretty similar to you. For me, I have Caleb Williams as 3. Because for me, I know you say just got that 1 interception. One of the things I wanted to see was how he did. And against Arizona State, I saw that. I liked what he said later in the game. He said all the right thing, answered the questions all the correct way. But for me, I just feel like he has that ability, and he's been trying to stay in the pocket and stay downfield. And he's doing what he needs to do. But I just keep looking at him like the Oklahoma, where he's just, I'm just going to run. I'm the better athlete. So I'm just going to show you that. So he has the pieces. And for me, it's going to see how, if he can sustain it and lead this team, not only through the Pac-12, but in potentially the Final Four or a major bowl game and something going forward. And then 1 and 2 are pretty similar. It's going to be Stroud at 1, and it's going to be Bryce Young at 2. If Bryce Young does not play and is hurt, I move him down. But for me, Bryce Young it's the championship advantage, the Heisman Trophy advantage. He's the reigning champ. So I think we have to keep him in that top 3 for sure. And when he has played, I mentioned to you that I think that he's it seems like he's jogging sometimes when he could go full speed. To me, that just is saying, on one side, I'm like, run full speed as a coach. But the other side is like, he's that much better. He's that much better than those guys. And if he can get this, and like, I'm worried. I'm worried for the other teams when he goes full tilt and he really gets it going with the weapons that he has. And if he has Gibbs and McClendon and they're going to, and now he's got Brooks, the receiver, and those guys, watch out for him. But at the end of the day, and I know Kate doesn't like me to say this team, but the Ohio State Buckeyes, led by C.J. Stroud, they dominated that game a week ago without Smith and Jigba. Okay, they have been able to tear up. We saw they had the different running back. It wasn't even Travion Henderson. I don't even know who the guy was. But did he have like 5 touchdowns? Williams
or something. It's insane. Yeah,
let's man up. I mean, that's when you have 5 stars all around. It must be nice. But but he's definitely for me the number 1. I think he is one of the best quarterbacks in the country. He's got the mechanics, he's got the team, but he's leading that team, and he acts like he's been there before, and I love it. You never hear any of this crazy stuff about him or anything like that. So hey, CJ Stroud right now, he's my number 1. But like I said, number 1 Stroud, 2 Young, 3 Williams. Then I got Mr. Brock Bowers, and then Mr. Hendon Hooker. And Drake May, you're not too far down there, my friend. Not too far. But keep playing well, youngster. We got it.
I love that Bowers pick. I almost put him in.
Yeah.
I almost did. I was like fighting there. But yeah.
I had to. And the thing is, the thing that gets me with him is the tight end position. But like you said, you kind of gave a little credibility to it in the fact that it's like he is by far the best tight end, but then he could also be wide receiver. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
Did I freeze again?
Yeah, you did. Yeah, I was like, did I freeze or did I?
I saw me go in and out for a second, and I was like, oh. So, yeah, Brock Bowers is definitely in there. But we will definitely see. Again, it's only week 5. So we will see. We will move down to this one. This is where I put my guy in. Drake Maye, dark horse, teetering on that line to front runner. 19 touchdowns, 1 interception. 1,600 yards in the air, led his team to a 4-1 record, and lost to a very solid Notre Dame team where he still threw for over 300 yards and I believe 3 touchdowns. You know what I mean? With no interceptions. That's huge part because that defense is legit. We saw what they held Ohio State to 21 points, and for most of that game, it was under 21. So. Yeah. I think Drake Maye is up there, and I think he deserves to have that kind of attention. And the other guy I've been talking about all season, Sean Tucker, out of Syracuse. Syracuse being 5-0 is helping the cause, but we all understand they're not. If it's Syracuse, they're not going to get that type of love, and it's unfortunate. But I believe Sean Tucker is the guy. I believe he can go into the league and be a top tier guy. I'm trying to actually look and see what his current total is at the moment. Let's see. Forgive me, ladies and gentlemen. Where did I have it? There we go. So in this game, he busted for 232. This game blew up for again, playing Wagner. So I'll pump my brakes a little bit.
That's still impressive to run that far, no matter who you're playing.
Exactly. 110 carries for over 540 yards, 5 TD. The guy averages 5 yards a pop. Sean Tucker is one of the best kept secrets in the country. And again, it's because he's over at Syracuse. People aren't familiar. They're not looking to that outside of being for a basketball school. One of the last big names that, a lot of people think about, obviously McNabb came from there. I mean, there's been guys that have come since, but I honestly think, Sean Tucker, being a sophomore, he balled out this way last year when he was a freshman. Watch out for him going forward. Those are my two kind of dark horses. And I know there's somebody that you were thinking about from Kansas who's moving up that list pretty quickly. What you got, Alex?
Yeah, Jalen Daniels for me is in that 6 to 8 range. Obviously, Hendon Hooker's right there. You already spoke about Hendon Hooker, what he did against Florida, and the big moments he still has to prove himself along the way. But Jalen Daniels and what he's done at Kansas, and they've been a top 3 scoring offense the entire season, and just what he's done has impressed the hell out of me being at Kansas. And they played some good teams, and they've handled their business, and he's handled business. So to me, I got to show him some love. And then Adrian Martinez for me.
Yes.
K-State. What he's done at Kansas State and that win against Oklahoma. We're going to talk in a second about Heisman moments, but for me, that thrust him into the conversation. That was his moment right there for me. So as long as he continues to ball out and do what he's doing, he's in that conversation for me too.
Absolutely. Hey, look, you alluded to it. Because that is the main question. A lot of, the stats are a big thing. The wins are a big thing. But we all know guys have to have that Heisman moment. You talk about your guy, Mr. Charles Woodson, when you're playing Michigan State and he comes over and has that one hand, taps it down, gets it in there, and then obviously his punt return, staying with Michigan, the guy that had the punt return, what was that? 10 years? That was almost 8 years before it in 91. Mr. Desmond Howard,
who did the pose,
made it famous to do that pose. Who have you seen this year that might potentially have that? I know it's kind of the big name guys really haven't had it. Bryce, CJ, those guys that really haven't played major teams. is it just the younger guys that have had it? Like, has Hendon had it? Like, what are your thoughts on who might have had a moment thus far?
And to me, my two big ones are Maye and Martinez.
Yeah.
And to me, Drake Maye, that game against Appalachian State, for me, that was his ticket into this conversation.
Yep. To
be punched in the mouth early and then you just take over and dominate that game. For me, that was absolutely the moment there. Adrian Martinez against Oklahoma, against what's supposed to be a good defensive team under Brent Venables. Whether we like it or not, doing anything like that against Oklahoma is still a big-time moment because it's Oklahoma.
mm-hmm.
So going there, shutting the door, and handling your business there, for me, that was absolutely one of those moments. Like you said, those top-tier guys haven't really had that moment yet. We'll wait till they play some of these more elite teams and see if they have their moment. There's not too many that have had that moment yet.
Yeah, I got to go with Hendon Hooker myself. I mean, obviously that game against Florida, I thought that was great.
Yeah.
I know the competition wasn't the best, but I go to your guy Blake Corum. I mean, anytime you get 5 touchdowns in a ball game, you gotta have some consideration. And then, as a matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, he had 200 in that game against. Didn't he have 200 in the game against Maryland? Yeah, 243 with 2 TDs in that game against Maryland. We've seen Maryland's going up. They're going up, as far as talent and then just the level of credibility for that school. So when you have somebody like Blake Corum that's doing it on that, in a game that, if you look at it, very highly contested, 34-27, you know what I mean? But still having over 200 yards, 5 yards a carry, those couple touchdowns with a long of almost 50 yards. I mean, these are the type of things that you're looking at. I mean, a lot of these college running backs are little quick guys, My man is jacked. My man is just
like 5'9" and like 210. Like, yeah.
All right. I was talking
little muscle hamster.
Right. I was talking to my fiance's dad, and he was just like, yeah, this guy, he's got that what we call country strength. And I was like, what? Yeah, that's when you lifted up the whole, the tractor and the whole, that's your workout. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it definitely shows. He's had that moment. But for me, it's really, like a lot of, I love Drake Maye, and he's, kind of on my outside looking in. So that's definitely something that I'm interested in. But for me, I'm still waiting. I'm waiting for that real moment where it's like, oh my God, like Caleb Williams a year ago, Red River Rivalry. Shout out to Anthony asking about that earlier. Red River Rivalry, we saw him come in and just save the day and do the things that he was able to do. That type of thing is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for even Zach Calzado, even though he was not in the Heisman contention, him being a backup quarterback, going in there and beating Alabama. Yeah. Woo! That's something that I'm like, okay, that guy. I like that guy. So I'm eager to see what we have going in the future, because it's getting to that time where we need to see something. And it's going to start showing up.
Absolutely. There's going to be that separation, and we did a top 5. There will be different people in the top 5 every week.
Yeah. You'll
have your couple people that stay in there, probably those top 3. But after that, it's going to shift so much.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Well, look, ladies and gentlemen, we are here trying to just talk about college football, because, to be honest with you, this is what we do all day anyway. So we just want to do it in front of you. Hopefully you appreciate it and enjoy it. Oh, man. But look, we are going to go ahead and let you go. The producer definitely gave me the whole the time is done, right?
Yeah.
So, I got to say, I appreciate you, my guy, Alex Loosemore. We finally got it done. Stay tuned.
We've been trying.
We're going to get it. It's a lot of work, but I appreciate you so much, man. So next week, stay tuned. We will be back with a little college football update. Also, stay tuned for this Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern time. Let's talk college football. We'll be back previewing all the games of that day, seeing, the ins and outs of what's going on, who's going to be the major upsets, and what to expect. So do you have anything else for him, Alex?
No, just the typical thanks for tuning in, everyone. Thank you to Sean for having this back and forth with me, letting me talk with you about college football. And yeah, we'll see you Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. And believe me, thank you. Okay. Because other than that, I would be in my fiance's room right now. Babe, did you know I have a top 5? Do you want to hear my top 5, babe?
I'd be talking to my brother over here doing the same thing. So.
Right. Do you want to know what happened? Do you know about this coach? Yeah, I appreciate you, Alex. You don't even know, man. Yo, so ladies and gentlemen, we are going to let you go. Hey, for myself, Mr. Sean Spencer, my guy, Mr. Alex Loosemore, we appreciate you joining us. Hey, and get ready for some good college football because it's right around the corner. Peace, people.